Good evening and welcome back to Discussing the Twitter Files. And I'll tell you honestly, I would have never thought that the First Amendment would come under such fire as it has had and still is during this time of political just turmoil. But let's go through this. It does take time to research each of these episodes and get some context around it. So make sure that I am providing the information to the best of my ability on this one. So thank you for your patience. We're continuing on. We're going to be doing Twitter Files 3, 4, and 5. And the reason is because those three all tie into the banning of Donald Trump and the various aspects of it from starting in October of 2020 and ending around January 8th and the fallout therefrom. So let's go ahead and get started with number 3. And before we do that, honestly, there's one thing I want to make absolutely clear here. Iran's supreme leader, Syed Ali Khamenei, is still fully able to post on Twitter, with the most recent of as of this writing on January 7th. Now, that was my initial research. He's probably posted since then. These are the people that chant death to America. These are the people that stone women for not wearing the hijab properly. These are the people that toss gays off of tall buildings. There are many other world leaders who have called for killing Americans, Israelis, French, and more. But those leaders remain on Twitter. So let's get started with Twitter Files Episode 3. On January 6th, Twitter was straining to justify their actions over the last several months. Trump would be the first sitting head of state to ever be suspended, not for anything he had done wrong on Twitter, but for the context surrounding his posts. Once again, Twitter executives and staff removed objective facts and elevated subjective reactions based on their political bias to create the grounds for the banning. In fact, it went so far as to be taken in the context of not just the January 6th demonstrations, but the entire time of the Trump presidency. Once again, how they perceived it was more important than the actual words written. And no amount of facts could change that, what in their hearts they just knew had to be evil intentions of Trump and those that worked with him. Effectively, Trump's very existence had become their dog whistle of evil, tantamount to allowing Satan himself to speak in their holy temple of Twitter. They had performed research to supposedly show that Trump's language was actually coded incitement, trying to create more violence. As the ban was applied to Trump's account, Twitter executives began to fathom the import of their action. They made plans to potentially limit the reach of official government accounts, even potentially banning them if, and I quote, absolutely necessary. This could even apply to new administrations. Oddly, I've really seen no indication that they intended to apply this to other governments that actually have stated objectives, including violence. From what I can see, these positions would continue to be allowed and spread by the Twitter staff. In the end, short of clear, obvious violations of the rules, Twitter had to make up supposed context to justify what they actually wanted to do anyway. Ban Donald J. Trump. By January 7th, the external pressure was growing on Twitter. People were screaming to ban Trump even louder than ever before. Their previous position in 2018 was to leave world leaders on their platform so that their actions could be debated. The idea of suppressing it outright beyond some limitations on distribution was foreign to them, until they finally found a target that slaked their thirst, one who was so egregious in their view that all norms had to be cast aside. As people such as former First Lady Michelle Obama and many others screamed for Trump to be permanently banned, Twitter execs took advantage of an interesting and important detail. Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, was on vacation. They could act while giving Jack only their view of events. I don't think Jack would have prevented the banning in the end, mind. But his absence certainly seemed to embolden these people to take that one extra step. Context is important, such as the fact that in 2018, 96% of Twitter staff's donations were to Democrats. By 2022, it was 99%. Overwhelmingly progressive. These people were primed in all respects to despise Republicans in general and Donald Trump in specific. Yes, Twitter executives were actually tweeting this type of thing, and worse, actually believing it. Their echo chamber was complete and total. Even Jack's reminders was insufficient to bring these executives out of their hard left bias long enough to analyze this objectively. They were getting it from both sides, though. External celebrities, internal employees, very much a mental prison of their own creation. They were excited by the new power of being able to permanently suspend people for repeat violations of the civic integrity policy. They were itching to ban Trump so much that when Jack approved the repeat violations of civic integrity policy changes, their first question was, does this affect Trump? Can we ban him yet? No indication they wanted to communicate this new policy, just implemented in the heat of the moment to the person that it was tailored to stop. No calls for transparency or even a public acknowledgement. The following day, Twitter announces a permanent ban of Donald Trump, not for anything he has actually done, not for any actual policy violation, but for the risk of further incitement to violence due to how they are being received and interpreted on and off the platform. At that point, anything to do with questioning the election was being hard stopped, de-amplified, restricted, or blacklisted. And of course, if you criticize Twitter for heavy-handed censorship, they just deleted your tweet. The debate after this is extensive, confusing, and yet still absolutely clear. Any excuse to ban Donald Trump was to be accepted. Even the tiniest violations would be accepted as reason to do so. Even just supporting Trump was enough for Twitter to seriously consider banning you, even without a violation. And in part 5, while the pressure grew outside and inside, there were a few dissenters. Those who were just a little more concerned with what was happening to the principles Twitter once espoused of open communication and debate. When someone who grew up in the oppressive censorship environment of China gets concerned, maybe you should be rethinking your course. However, this falls effectively on deaf ears. The threat to democracy, with a capital D, was too much. Though if they really understood democracy, they would know this is exactly what democracy looks like: mob rule. For the first time, someone addresses the First Amendment, how it was not a tool to restrict Twitter's power, but the government's ability to restrict Twitter's power. This despite the fact that they had been working as an arm of the government for months and years, accepting their censorship requests without question. They had been working as government agents, but finally lifted their fig leaf of protection from criticism. We are not the government, and the First Amendment only applies to the government. At the start of January 8th, President Donald Trump's temporary suspensions had been ridden out, and he tweets twice, once in support of those that voted for him, and once announcing that he will not attend the inauguration. However, it was quickly becoming clear that it didn't matter what he did or did not say. The sound of the mob was beginning to coalesce within the ranks of Twitter. Employees were calling for Trump to be banned, not for violating the rules, but for trying to stay within them. His words were parsed, reparsed, then recast into two new realities that matched their political leanings in ever more creative ways to cram a violation into his words somehow. In the end, mob rule and political bias won, and President Donald Trump was permanently banned from the platform. They rewrote the rules in secret, behind closed doors, and finally justified what they had wanted to do for 4 long years, even if an objective reason could not be found. And that's the Twitter files, sections 3 through 5. We'll pick up with part 6, where we discover how Twitter and the FBI became the bestest of buds. And that's for the next time, though. Thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you think I am missing something in these, please let me know what it is so we can discuss it further. You have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next one.